Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 37 of the Hot Path Show. I'm Johnny Turbo, joined in by Tobias. Welcome in, Tobias. How's it going?
It's going good. A little bit tired, but now getting pumped up for this. So energy is flowing.
Awesome. Yeah. And I was telling you right before this that I'm on a little bit of a weight cut right now. I'm doing a jiu-jitsu tournament tomorrow, and the weigh-ins are actually tonight. So, yeah, I haven't really ate or drank a whole lot today. Just, staying right on weights. And then shortly after the show here, going to go to weigh in and then have a nice meal tonight and be ready for the tournament tomorrow.
Are the abs popping? I hear that
Oh, yeah.
when people are like in movie sets and like whatever dude is gonna have a shirtless scene, they're like, don't drink for 2 days,
Oh,
and then
yeah,
they
yeah,
like
and
look
you get
super
all
ripped.
super vascular and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Very
now, I
healthy,
guess.
very healthy to do that.
Yes,
That's right here.
yes, perfect.
But yeah, and yeah, I was gonna say, so we got the different little producer tags for everybody. So we have one for Danny.
Oh,
Remember, we got this here. And then we also got one for me now.
Run that back, Turbo. Run that back, Turbo. Run that back, Turbo.
Run that back, Turbo.
run
But Tobias, we need to get you the rapper producer tag that we can play at the beginning of the Hot Path show here.
Okay. I'm I'm confused. What do we do now?
We got to find I don't know, some artist named Tobias or something. I don't know.
Oh, like that just random sound clip that
Yeah, no, these are from actual songs.
So okay, so is that my homework for next time I'm on, or
Yeah.
or if I have some idea, I would maybe pull that out right now. But I don't know anybody actually named Tobias. It doesn't ring easily off the tongue as Danny or Turbo. It's like
Right. Yeah.
a little bit
I
too
was saying to
syllabally.
Danny on the other episode where I had his producer tag that we just gotta play some Avicii for you or something when you
Oh
come on.
yeah, okay. Yes. Or oh yeah, I remember now. I watched that. Or Swedish House Mafia, I think you suggested also.
Oh yeah. That's right.
Something like that. Yes. My former colleague who is the PR manager for Stanlock now, he was actually almost in Swedish House Mafia. He's an old house producer.
Oh wow, no way.
Yeah, he knows those guys or knew them when they were like before they got famous and stuff, and apparently he was like, nah, I don't want to. I want to focus on small stuff and not that, because you got to go so commercial to do that. It's different type of a music thing. So
Yeah, totally.
pretty cool.
Well, I remember you were telling me that you've done a little bit of DJ work. So did you not get like a DJ, like DJ Tobias? Did you
I
get
know. I actually named. Well, I didn't really have a DJ name because there was like a student union pub, which 600 people on the dance floor sometimes or something like that. So pretty large, but still, like I did it as for free during my university times, and nobody came there because I was a DJ. They came there to dance, and then there was a DJ who
right.
grew up. So like nobody ever went to a place to hear me DJ. They went to a place because they wanted to dance, and
then you just
I,
happened to be the DJ there.
but yeah, it was a great time. So I don't mind. I think I named myself Numerous Beats for a while.
Okay.
That was like, I think there's a SoundCloud account with that. So Numerous Beats, it's like a dual meaning in Latin or whatever. I thought I was super clever, but I never really used it for anything. I just like created a SoundCloud and a stupid logo in Photoshop, and then like forgot about it.
Yeah, there you go. It happens.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so welcome into the Hot Path Show, everybody. This, of course, is where we talk about solving problems in game development using data-oriented design. And Tobias, you're going to be taking over the main topic for our kind of main portion of the show here today. So why don't you give the people a little preview about what you're going to be sharing with us today?
Yeah, so maybe I can actually show something. Oh, and I just
Yeah, you
lost
don't
my
have to
pad.
like even pull
Okay.
anything up if you don't need to. You can just give a
I was
little.
just like thinking about just a slight tease, but no, it's I'm gonna talk about baking, and like the custom physics baking system is a little bit grandiose for where I'm, but it's essentially like where the power lies in the baking system for something like a custom physics setup, so you can like have a person physics. Woohoo! Yes. You can have something where the artist has their authoring components and everything, and then you have something where the programmers are optimizing and making a completely different situation for it. And the baking is the magic for more reasons than it's obvious. Yes, so I'm going to talk about that and show an example and how it builds up to like what I shipped in Just Read Instruction, which is a very, very handy tool that I made.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, very much looking forward to it. So yeah, anyways, before we get into some of our ECS topics, we can go ahead and start things off with a little bit of a warm-up topic here. So wanted to check in with you just kind of on like AI development, and have you been using any kind of AI tools lately, or has there been anything like within the AI development realm that has caught your eye or been something that you want to experiment with? I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit before, but I just kind of wanted to, check back in with you and see if anything has changed within the past couple months or so. But yeah, I mean, is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think there isn't anything new that come out that I'm like, oh shit, I gotta use that or anything. I see all of these, I mainly tried Copilot, and I
Mm,
ChatGPT. I pay for the pro version of ChatGPT,
yeah,
but there's something called Sonnet, and there's Llama. I know that Sonnet is
there's a bunch. Yeah,
Llama is like from Facebook, and Nvidia seems to be training a version of Llama or whatever, and like they're always like, who can get the highest score in the bar, the lawyer bar or whatever. I'm like,
right. Yeah.
is that reasoning? I don't think so. I think it's just
Just kind of
basically,
knowing, yeah,
yeah, it's
the
search on
law.
crack is sort of how I feel about it. And
Yeah.
it's, I am finding so much use from ChatGPT as like an interactive documentation.
Mm,
That's like just completely revolutionized the way I program. Like it will never write the code for me at the moment that I want, but
yeah.
it
Yeah.
will 100% sure, like point me to all the different nuances of something without me reading like 3 pages of documentation and 2 forum posts. I
So
would just
what exactly do you mean by that? Like, could you give us like a practical example of how you would use that?
you know what? If I'm not gonna share it, but I can just take a quick look at it. Like I know I do use this today to look something up, and now ChatGPT won't load. That's a good timing on that one, huh?
So is that are you talking about more like there's some existing code base that you're trying to like understand, or if
No,
you kind of know what you want to do but you need some ideas for some APIs to use?
yes. So this is, I guess, this is actually sort of a kind of thing I just copied in. I basically had a situation where I had to step through a situation that only happened in build. And like, how do you
Mm,
step through something that only happens in build? And then I sort of I just like ask, like, I guess, like, because stepping in Unity is actually just like a 0 time scale, and then like you step through with the just one flip of the whatever. Yeah, you know how stepping through. It's just one loop at a time. But you can emulate that because like it's essentially just timescale manipulation on a frame by frame basis. So I asked ChatGPT, like, what would it look like to control the time stepping in a build just like in editor? Like this is probably this is something that could work. And I just look through it and I'm like, yeah, I can change 2 things here, which doesn't really isn't that stable. And then I just use that, and that's just straight up code that I'm like, I know this is possible. I just don't really care about the super details of it, and I don't care to think about the best it's like, just finding the best
right. You're
Stack
almost
Overflow
using it
thing.
just like for like a tool for that kind of one-off thing, just to like basically
Yeah,
like, yeah.
And then also I had another one that is super like I had a situation where we made a change in thing in software where a bunch of game objects became inactive during a point, and I was
Okay.
like and there's a bunch of get components in children to like find subcomponents, and if the root game object is inactive, it won't find any of those unless you like include inactive. But that was like a whole thing, like you can possibly break stuff if you are not careful, because it's not the same, and you just change stuff and something is going to change in how it's
Right.
executes.
Like it may fix that one problem, but for all the other implementations of it, like
Exactly. So I just basically asked like ChatGPT, okay, like I have a bunch of different files and I want to find any usage of get component in children in the wake function. Can you just create like a reasonable way of doing it? And I like wrote maybe regex. Like, yeah, regex is probably the best idea, and this is how you do it. And then like a few quality of life food for thought keynotes, like think about this and this, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I would do it. I would just have to think about it for 15 more minutes. So that sort of thing. And then I couldn't use the code. I had to modify it a little bit, but I get the core thing of it. And that is like, that's the way I use ChatGPT all the time. I just like, I know what I need to do. I know the context and I know the overarching problem. ChatGPT can't really understand the whole situation that well to spit out an answer for me, but I can get the different
Right.
parts in
you kind of
context.
know the context and you can kind of provide that context to hopefully get some kind of reasonable answer.
Yes. So, and I don't know. I feel weird about it because like I'm like, how many like nice blogs that really needs my click and ad revenue am I being bypassing right now?
Right.
I feel kind of bad about it because I would like to read more like Medium articles or whatever the different tech blogs
Yeah, where
are.
someone like is diving deep into a specific problem and they're like clearly very knowledgeable around that, and like you kind of
Yes.
want to support that,
Exactly. But yeah, and it's also like if I don't use this, I think most people who are in like our shoes and don't use it is eventually gonna have to be using it or gonna be run over by other people who do it. I don't think it's going super fast, but I think that will like slowly emerge as a thing that you need to optimize your time going through documentation via a chatbot, because like everybody's doing this and they're just getting a little bit more done over time.
Right.
I'm for sure getting more things done because of ChatGPT. I'm completely certain of it. But it took me like maybe half a year to calibrate what I'm like. What do I do with it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It definitely does.
I remember I asked it to write like some polygon ear clipping algorithm to like do some convex conversion or whatever, and that was like the first time I like, okay, let's see if we can do this. And it's maybe a year ago, and it's just completely. It wasn't even remotely correct. I'm like, all right, let's not ask it to write the math code again. This is just not gonna hold up. But
Yeah.
as a documentation searcher on Crack, super good. Yes. PowerShell output by that this one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, yeah, I find it really useful for kind of like building little tools for myself like that. Like, yeah, if I want to make a PowerShell script or something where it's like I don't really care about like knowing all these Windows PowerShell APIs in and out, because it's just like, once a month I'll have to write one of these little like PowerShell tools. And if like ChatGPT can like write, 90% of that for me, then like that's totally awesome.
Exactly.
But yeah, I definitely find, and especially he also brings up, has a lot hard time with some data oriented stuff, because it's mostly trained on object oriented stuff, which totally makes sense. And yeah, that's why I found like, when I'm doing ECS stuff, I'm not really using any type of chat GPT or anything that much. But I mean, as far as like things that like don't really matter, like, I've kind of been using it. Actually, the reason that I brought this up is because I used the Chat GPT, that new 01 model of it that's supposed to like, think more or whatever. I actually used it to write a Chrome extension. And it basically wrote all the code for me. I've, probably only read like 5% of the code, and it does mostly what I need it to do. But yeah, actually I can show my screen.
Oh, I got such a spicy take on this. Continue. I want to see what you.
No. I'm saying that's definitely a problem that I've only read 5% of this code here. But so
it's not a spicy take on you reading it. Is some different thing. Yeah, don't worry.
So yeah, one of my goals for the year is on GitHub. I want to program every single day and basically like prove that out using GitHub commits. So this is kind of my year so far. I've made it every day up to this point.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed is that, I'm at 940 contributions this year so far. Last year was my previous highest at 698. So I'm already past my highest.
Damn.
And then what I actually found is because it kind of drops off because I wasn't using GitHub like a super ton in years past. So this, 252, 240, and then 17. And then pretty much everything past this is just like very not so many, right?
Damn.
So I actually found out that I could, if I wanted to, I may be able to have more contributions this year than all previous years combined.
Oh.
So what I did is, let me refresh this page here. So the goal is 1,254 commits. And then I have this little Chrome extension that, basically you just paste this text in here that says how many commits on average per day do I need to write to reach that goal?
4.24. Does it say that?
4.24. Yep.
So you got a code.
So it's gonna be a busy time, but I'm working on something cool that
I guess it's also like a thing where like what constitutes a commit and like how much do you want to like cheat in your own mind.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm trying to make like as few like bullshit commits as possible where I'm just like, oh, I just added a comment on here. And
but if you like, if there's like the 31st of December and you're missing like 14 commits, you're gonna be like, just count to 14, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Write a for loop that like sends commits automatically.
Is it okay? So I just looked. I had never looked at this on GitHub actually. I just seen the memes about some like tiles in a bathroom that looked like this.
Like, don't apply unless your GitHub looks like this.
Yeah, exactly. So guess when my first GitHub commit is? I was surprised by this myself.
Mine's 2015. I feel like you would be before that. I'm gonna say 2013.
Nah, it's September 2012.
Okay.
So that was and then like 13 is completely blank. So I didn't do anything, and then it's ramping up. But I just used GitHub for open source project for like the first 6 years. I had an account. None of the project at Stanlock used GitHub. Everything was the Subversion SVN. So if I would include SVN commits on the Stanlock servers into this, it would be like completely covered the whole of 15 and 16. Yeah, but and now I can see my sulfur ramping, like it's getting thicker and thicker and thicker for every month come by the past 6 months. So yeah,
as you're like slowly diving more into crunch.
Yeah, and just read instructions is basically just. If I look at the years they'll just do instructions, I can see that I didn't crunch.
It was just kind of all pretty even.
It's all spaced out. That game doesn't barely have any tech debt, which is like, well, it got a massive design debt apparently, but tech debt it doesn't have. All right, well, it's cool. I used the ChatGPT 01. It did take me about 2 hours in total to create this. Like I basically just described exactly what I wanted. It seemed to understand what I wanted right off the bat. Again, just blindly
creating the files that it spit out for me didn't work at all at first, and then we kind of went through a couple back and forth debugging steps to get to the point where the extension would actually start loading. And then at that point, then there was a number of errors that we had to work through where I said, hey, this is the error that I'm seeing.
Are you saying we, as in you and ChatGPT?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, how else would I say that, right?
I for welcome our robot overlords. So I agree.
I mean, yeah. So
no, continue. Sorry, I was just confused for a second. Yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, went back and forth with ChatGPT, going through the errors, and then basically got to a place where it's like mostly working for what I need it to do, and So I mean, again, but yeah, I don't know. I want to hear your spicy take on what you're going to say about.
My spicy take is that if ChatGPT can write the code for you, you're probably not working on hard issues.
Yeah.
Again,
and that's like this stupid little Chrome extension where it's like, okay, do I really want to spend like however many hours it takes to like learn how to write a Chrome extension, and then like
but I sort of
figure out JavaScript again, and
I take that sort of whole statement and just like putting it over the general web development industry and like sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Most websites look sort of the same for me. I understand like all of it's a different kind of setup. It's not like hardcore in like the type of problems you deal with is completely different type than game development. And I feel like the actual problems around the web development is more like redundancy and stability and smoothness, maybe on the front end. It's like different kind. Here's like hard, more like a linear algebra and just very confusing math all the time, and game design and all intertwined is different than just like we need to pull data back and forth and put it on a nice display, and that's basically
and it's like very websites. Predictable how that works.
Yes, and then they have a different set of problems that ChatGPT can't help them with, obviously, but the creation of the websites, both back end and front end, I feel like is much more ChatGPT compatible. And also, especially since like the web is completely drenched, literally, figuratively, in all of the ways in web code, because it's built on web code, and there's a much more example code.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, couldn't ChatGPT like basically just like start scraping like the source codes of like websites and then just like train off of that?
I would imagine that like at least 50% of all the lawsuits right now because of AI is probably something related to that kind of thing. Yeah. So, but anyway, I would do exactly the same. Use ChatGPT for that. So, but good use. Yeah.
So no, I mean it was a fun little exercise just to kind of see where like AI dev is at for, again, these kind of like little tool things that don't quite matter. But I'm kind of on board with you that as far as like solving interesting and meaningful problems, it's got a long ways to go, I think.
Yep. And before I forget, also this one slightly spicy take on this. Hello, Simon. But I think using the reason why I haven't considered Unity version control about GitHub versus SVN and stuff is like, if you are making a game engine, you should probably not deal with everything that comes around that, because you should focus some like principally like no Unity. You should focus on the game engine, not version control. Stop buying other companies that making version control.
Well,
focus on that.
I guess an argument for that could be, if it's directly linked into the game engine, then it could potentially have better features that are more suited towards game development as opposed to a general version control system.
I think version control system is a generalized and complex enough problem to warrant its own sort of organization that is focused on that, like Git, and you should do that via a very, very well crafted and expensive plugin made by Unity. But that's honestly just my opinion. I don't really. It's not like I have a dog in this race. Like whatever.
Yeah.
I think Unity version control is probably really good. I haven't used it. I'm just like, no, Unity, just focus on the core stuff. I want it to go fast.
Well, I was going to say, in regards to this, from what I've heard, the Unity version control actually seems to work really well if you're working on Unity projects in larger teams, just because of how it like handles conflicts for different types of assets and scenes and everything like
Right.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It makes sense. But I would also expect a bunch of the different other ones to be like more well, I guess. Couldn't you like swap out different parts of like Git to like have a different merge system for specifically for file something?
that I don't know. I haven't
Actually,
haven't
I have
necessarily
no
had the
idea
need
either.
to like look into that at all. So
No, yeah, maybe I'll climb down from this hill and make sure I don't die. I do not think it's a bad idea if you are having a good idea with the version control that fits into your tooling super well. It's just I was so annoyed when Unity was so deep into like mobile game and ads with the other CEO, and now they seem to be more focused on like the core tech stuff about the engine. I'm like, yes, just continue with that. So any distraction, I'm like, please don't leave that to other companies and focus on the game engine.
Well, hey, speaking of, this would be a great transition into our next portion here, where we have a little bit of miscellaneous kind of topics here. So Unity 6000 just released officially yesterday. So yeah,
They
there's
knew we were gonna have a podcast today, so they were like,
they knew, they're like, we got to get it out just in time for the Hot Path show, so they can, talk about this new Unity version that seems to have been out for a long time, but is now officially out.
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm sure many people have probably experimented around with it at this point in kind of the preview stages. If not, it has been working out pretty well for me as far as again, my experience in the preview phases. I've been very happy with it. It seems to work well with dots. And have you been kind of using it? I don't think you're using it for Sulfur, but have you been using it for some of your other kind of personal projects and all that?
Yeah. Nip for Speed 2 is
in
6,000. Chicken Stew is in 6,000. And the baking example I have now for today is just a little bit of code, so it's not a lot. But yeah, whenever I have a reason to work in any of those two projects or create a new one, I always go just delete the last 6,000 and download the latest one and just update all of my projects to that one.
Oh, okay. So you're keeping them pretty up to date with all the bug patches and everything.
If it's like a project that is below, I don't know, 5,000 lines of code, I'm like not even thinking. I'm just like,
right, you're probably not even doing anything crazy custom.
Yeah. And honestly, like after 2020 or something like that, and if you exclude updating through the different early versions of dots, updating Unity versions hasn't been a big issue for me. I would say also that's like because they like sort of been pretty good at preparing with the obsolete hinting and stuff, and I've been pretty
yeah. Where you can get some of the little squigglies in your editor, and you say, "Oh, this is going to become obsolete at some point."
And even if you don't change it, sort of when you read that, you're like, "Why is it?" And then like it has some comment about why it's obsolete, and you're like, it's just like somewhere in your mind, it's just like hooked. And then like, a year later, when you upgrading and something breaks, and you're like, there's some bell in the back of my mind. There's something I read about, and like it sort of takes you on the right path, and then you're finding it. So
yeah. And even sometimes they have had kind of like built-in little tools that kind of like analyze all your code and look for some of those APIs that need to be changed to new things. And,
The one thing that actually, when I updated the Sulfur project from 21 to 22, one thing that sort of screwed over that was very documented problem was that if you set the position of a transform that also is a rigid body, you could teleport that rigid body, and it worked perfectly well in 2021. But in the updated version, you sort of, unless you used the rigid body dot position, it did like weird interpolation between the old position and the new position, so you could collide on the way to your teleport position and like get stuck in the middle. So when we teleported stuff in
It was doing
software,
like continuous collision detection, basically.
something
Yeah.
like that, and there was a lot of times when they used just setting the transform, even if it was a rigid body in the back, on the backside, or it was a rigid body on the game object. And I just know that we had to like go through and fix like maybe 10 of those issues or something, or not 10 of the issues, 10 points in the code, which possibly
right.
yeah. And so that was like, I knew that was the case, but I was surprised that like nothing like showed up in warnings or anything like that. I was just like, yeah, they transformed that position, doesn't do what it did before in this context, and like no real warning or anything like that. But I guess it's hard to do this perfectly, but that's a minor upgrade issue, I would say.
Yeah.
So have you been playing around, and you're feeling confident and good and happy about
with
it?
the latest project that I've been working on, that I think I'm going to be officially revealing it here 2 weeks from today. So not the next episode. Actually, the next episode, Danny's going to be back talking about some more Odin stuff. Odin and Raylib is kind of the plan, and then after that, I think I'm going to be kind of doing the full reveal on the project. But I have been putting out little teasers over on my Instagram. If you want to follow me over there on Turbo Makes Games Instagram, of course, you can leave a link down here. And then, I've been kind of like posting some stories, and I have this little thing here. So got a couple little previews of some of the artwork and some of the gameplay and some of the things that I've been
I like the
here.
emotions, the camera movement are
I've got
you can hear the alien sound effects.
And showing us some cool little things that I was doing with shader graph here for some animations, kind of based off of Danny's little 2D animation setup. And
nice.
Here's the actually this is kind of the first iteration of the chest opening animation. Sorry, it's kind of lagging a little bit here, but so yeah, it's kind of, again, based off of like a Vampire Survivors type game. And then here's the kind of full new version here.
Damn, is that physics?
Was that?
Is that physics?
No, so it's just kind of like based off of like Unity's like particle system for like the little coins and stuff shooting out. And I've actually been using Timeline for the first time.
What do you think?
I was kind of surprised at like how easy it was to get like up and running. Again, I just made that little kind of animation thing over the course of 2 days. But yeah, it was pretty easy to like understand. It definitely seems like there are some kind of like quirks and little things about it that like are just kind of don't work. Like it's a little buggy and kind of like some of the spots, but I think I'm kind of like understanding the quirks. But I mean, that's kind of like, how it goes with Unity. There's always like little weird things that you
little
need to
details
figure out.
and nuances. Yeah, have you done any custom clip custom coding for it, or have you just used the built-in types?
No, I've basically just been doing all just kind of mostly stuff through the editor, and then just a couple times where I'm like switching out what is kind of like the active playable timeline thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I like timeline. We did something similar early on in Battle Right before they came up with it, and then they come up with that, and that was like it actually like solved most of those things, and you could do everything you expected from it. So I like it too, and it works pretty well just out of the box. But the custom coding for it, I guess it needs to be that way for reasons, but like the object-oriented nature of it is crazy. you have
timeline.
yeah, you have your asset that like describes what's supposed to be like the asset on disk, and then you have the clip, like the actual like clip UI thing, like that owns the asset that you can see, the one where you basically makes longer or shorter the clip in the timeline. That's its
Oh yeah, okay.
own script. And then if you have several of these playing at the same time, then you gotta have a mixer. So you create another class, another custom class that is a mixer that takes in more one or more playing simultaneously version of the same thing. And then on top of that, you need like a fourth class to interpret this properly. So you need 4 custom classes to be able to do a custom one custom timeline track thing. Oh, the track is the first. So clip, asset, track, and mixer. And you're like, and 3 of them needs to be their own file. And you're like, object-oriented game design or programming. I
know this came up on the episode we did last week with Code Monkey, where someone had kind of brought up some kind of VR topics, and I was saying how the like MetaQuest SDK for Unity is like everything that I hate about object-oriented programming, like taken to the absolute nth degree. It's like, oh, this is so horrible to work with.
Is it like inheritance, the looks and the interfaces all
well, yeah, there's all kinds of like inheritance and like way too many settings, and then it's also like you'd be like, oh, like I need this component, and then I'll like put this component on, and it just like doesn't work, and it doesn't like throw any errors, but like you don't know that you need like 3 other components on that object and like 1 other component on some like global object with some specific settings, and then like references between all of those. It's like, how am I supposed to know to set this all up?
yeah, that's how many levels of inheritance? That's
all of them.
All of them. yes. It was the same thing. Input system for on asset, in control was the name of it. I don't think it's really used anymore, but it was the basis for Battlewrite. And I think I like, when you like, oh, how is this function actually reading the input from the whatever source, and you like go through it and like, oh, it's an interface, go through that, and like, oh, that's a delegate behind that. Oh, and then there's like 4 different override versions of it. Which is it? I don't know. I have to like follow the code through 6 different initialization functions to even understand what the actual class that is instantiated is. Ugh. So like, and yeah, it's just crazy. Screw inheritance. I don't like it.
It's the worst.
Yeah. Constitutional programming. Have you heard about that?
No.
I think that's what you actually call it when the thing where you can make an archetype in ECS falls under the concept.
You mean composition?
No, I
know. People say like composition over inheritance.
No, I think composition also, but I've heard many people talk about constitutional, and okay. Because like this constitutes blah blah blah.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. And since English is not my first language, these sort of slightly esoteric words, it's like I don't really know the definitions of it. It sounds fancy, and I don't know, maybe that's the way you should call it. So I just heard somebody say ECS is constitutional programming. I'm like, woof, that's a word. But and then like word. because something can have very different components, so it constitutes something because it had components something. I don't know. Side tangents. Yeah.
No, that's a new one for me. I'll have to look into that.
Yes.
And actually, a couple of things that I still do want to mention about the Unity 6000 release is there are some new things available to us that we can download and play around with. So the Time Ghost character, environment, all that stuff, it's available for you to download and play around with. So go ahead and run it on your machine if you have a beefy GPU. And yeah, play around with that. So I think I might want to experiment around with that and see how well it runs on my machine. I think it.
What GPU do you have?
4090.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn it. That's good. I bought mine 3 weeks before the crypto crash last year.
Oh wow!
So I paid like $1,000 for my 3070, and like a month later,
Really?
it cost like 600.
Dang.
But it was yeah, I was like way too deep into gesture instruction, just making that happen. So like $400 was like, who cares? I
Yeah,
just need to
yeah,
make
I get it. No, I upgraded to a 4090 because I was working on like a VR project that had a lot of graphics programming stuff that was going on. I'm like, this is going to help my workflow, and it did.
yeah. Sometimes it just helps to shave off a few seconds or some frame rates in some situations,
Yeah,
and it just helps you work immensely. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then also the Fantasy Kingdom asset pack is available, which is a Cinti Studios asset. So this is available now to download and play around with as part of the Unity 6000 release. And yeah, they've also been doing a bunch of kind of things around the launch of Unity 6000. So yesterday they did a big 6-hour live stream. I mean, it should have been a 6,000-hour live stream. But, you know.
How many days are that? Is it like a week? No, it's like a
that's
month.
a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did a big 6-hour live stream where they're kind of like talking about a bunch of the main kind of, you know, pillars of the new release. And then also what they're going to be doing is they're only doing 6 weeks of this instead of 6,000 weeks, which is a little, you know, a little bit of a letdown. No, but they're doing 6 weeks of this what they call these office hours, which is basically kind of like the new name for they previously had these things called Dev Blitz Days,
Okay.
where basically they like all the, you know, a lot of the employees for a specific topic, like, you know, multiplayer, or they did a dots one, would be kind of like active on the forums and in the Discord, basically just kind of like answering whatever questions you have related about that topic.
Right.
So they're going to be doing over the next 6 weeks, starting on the 23rd, which I think is next Wednesday. Yeah. And then like each Wednesday after that, then they're going to be having like new topics, and it's basically just kind of like going throughout the day. So there's, you know, graphics, multiplayer, platforms, Centis, profiling and UI, and the final one is Pro Builder and Cinemachine. So yeah, again, yeah, be on the lookout for those things if you are interested in learning about any more of those topics there.
Nice. Do you know how many weeks 6,000 hours are?
Did you look it up?
Yes. I calculated it.
Well, I mean, 52 weeks in a year, so 2 years is 100. So
No,
that's
how
what-
many weeks 6,000 hours are?
Oh, 6,000 hours. I thought you were saying weeks. So
No.
weeks is like what, 120 years or something. But so hours to weeks, and it's like 8 weeks.
35.
35. Okay.
Yes. It's it's got a long time.
That's over half a year.
Yeah. So that would be a live stream too for the history books. Yeah. All right. Sorry, derailing you again.
No.
Continue.
This is important stuff that we need
Yes.
to discuss here.
For sure.
And then actually also next week on October 23rd, they're doing another live stream where they're going to be announcing the winners of the Unity Awards. Once again, we were nominated for Best Live Streamer. So you know, fingers crossed that
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I guess
we don't get in last place.
yes. Go and vote with all your alternative accounts, please, audience.
Well, we can't vote anymore, but I know a bunch of
Oh.
people did show up and vote, so we really do appreciate the support over there.
Yes.
We got Mr. Awesome's vote. Heck yeah.
Woohoo. Awesome.
And then last little announcements that I had. You know, Code Monkey, we had him on the show last week, and he actually recently put out a update to his Big Dots course, where this one is talking about flow field pathfinding in Unity Dots. So he basically kind of goes over creating a grid and kind of doing his approach to a data-oriented flow field pathfinding. So that, again, is available through his course. And I have a link to that down in the description below if you do want to join his course. A lot of really good info in there, a lot of little things that even I've picked up. And yeah, just kind of good to see how he does his different implementations of everything. But yeah, it's good stuff.
I actually never implemented a flow field. I've just seen like explanation of sort of how it works. I
Right,
think you had made something about this,
I've
right?
done a couple things. Yeah.
I think I've seen just like skim through it and like, yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah,
then I haven't.
it's a fun exercise to do at the very least.
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt. Then real quick, just want to remind you all that, of course, if you do want to, you can support us over on Patreon and through YouTube memberships, where we have some fun bonus videos and stuff there. So I recently did a vlog about my experience at Unite. Last month, we had a good Q&A topic related to kind of some interesting ECS API stuff. And then, of course, we're going to be having a new Q&A video for this coming month in just a little bit here. And I also did a little bit of a behind the scenes kind of sneak preview about that Survivors game that I've been working on. Just kind of like talking about some of my plans for what it's going to be. But once again, like I mentioned, I'm going to be hopefully I have everything ready to kind of do the full reveal of things 2 weeks from today. That should be November 1st when I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more. But up until then, again, I'll be posting little teasers here and there on Instagram and Twitter and Discord and stuff. So yeah, check it out. Okay. So anyways, we can go ahead and get into some of our kind of ECS topics of discussion here. So I do have a little thing for the cache hit Unity Dots quick tip of the week. Although in preparing for this, it wasn't reacting exactly as I thought it was going to. So I'll show you this little thing that I've kind of got going here.
I had a similar situation with my physics baking thing also, where I'm like, this is not. So we're both, I guess, a little bit kicked in the tracks. Yeah.
So this is this is my little project here, and this is actually, I implemented something that I learned actually from CodeMonkey's course. It was just a little one line of code that I hadn't came across before. But so basically, let me just give you like a quick little, just play the game real quick here. So we see that we have kind of some basic like little 2D animations as we're walking around this little kind of like walk cycle for the character, and all the enemies, they have their own little walk cycles and stuff here happening as well. So the way that I kind of have these animations set up is I define a lot of the properties of these animations through these scriptable objects here. Yeah. So I kind of, assign the material, and it's basically kind of like happening on a sprite sheet. So I kind of like say, this is how many frames each animation type has and stuff like that. So just all just kind of defined within a scriptable object. Now, basically what I want to do is bake this data into a blob asset. So if we go to the prefabs and we look at, say, the player entity here, we have this, actually I'll show it on the enemy entity because this is kind of where some of the strange things were happening here. On this little graphics child entity, you'll see that I have this animation authoring, and then on here, I basically just drag the actual scriptable object onto here. So now if we go over here, this is the animation authoring here. And then, you see what I'm doing is, using this blob builder, doing, construct root, all the, blob builder allocations.
All the verbose things you have to do.
Yeah, all the verbose things and all this, right? So originally, I didn't have this kind of line of code that I learned in the CodeMonkey course, where basically, we're just creating the blob builder. We get the this is the blob asset reference of the type that I'm trying to bake. And then from here, we can say, add this to a component, this, animation properties blob. So this is the actual component there.
Yeah, and the value is a blob reference, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. So what I learned from the CodeMonkey course is there's this API inside of the Baker class, which is add blob asset. Is this something that you have used before, this add blob asset call?
No, actually not. I think I read about it. And I was gonna talk a little bit about blob asset in relation to what I am about to say later.
Okay.
So maybe
perfect.
Yeah. So this maybe, but like continue. Like this is new to me a little bit, I think.
So yeah, I don't fully understand this because again, like my kind of mental model of it was kind of one way, and then things kind of broke as I was just doing some testing right now. But I think the idea behind this is to like avoid creating like multiple copies of the same blob asset.
Yeah.
So yeah, you basically just do this add blob asset, and then you put a reference into your animation blob reference here. And then, basically if you have multiple entities that reference the same data, then, they will share the same blob asset. It's not going to like create multiple ones.
Yeah.
Now I did this just as I showed off, where I just used the add blob asset, and last a couple days ago when I was doing this, it basically kind of like broke my project, just putting that one line in.
Oh, wow.
And I found, it didn't like break my project. It broke a specific part of my project, I should say.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it right now. I think it's going to work fine, which it does, because again, this is where my mental model kind of broke, because again, this was working all as expected, but I had this exact setup last week or whatever, and the strange thing was happening. And I determined that this was because I had two different enemy prefabs that both had an authoring component that were both referencing that same scriptable object. And when I had both those prefabs instantiated in the scene, I was getting like some weird null errors or something like that. Like it like the blob asset, like if I went into the inspector, like the serialized hash on like half the entities that were like from this one specific enemy prefab all had a value of 0.
All right. Yeah.
Like it like wasn't being initialized.
Yeah.
I took that line out, and then everything like worked fine, that add blob asset line. But yeah, for some reason it's working now, which is kind of like the thing that's kind of breaking my mental model a little bit. But I'll show you the fix that I ended up doing, because it's another kind of cool thing here. So instead, there's this add blob asset with custom hash. So basically you kind of define the custom hash, and then it adds the blob asset. So now the way that this works is I can go ahead and just kind of like uncomment out these things here.
Yeah.
So basically I take the, then I got to do this. So basically I take the animation properties scriptable object, and I do a .get hash code on it. That's just kind of like a regular Unity thing that just returns.
It's in C#.
Oh yeah.
Where
basically just returns an integer, kind of like from like it just hashes that into an integer. So I create this hash 128 from that, and then basically what I can do is there's this try get blob asset reference. So you pass in the hash
in the Baker.
Yes, inside the Baker.
Yep. Continue.
So you pass in the hash, and then you get the blob asset reference out of that. And so if it already exists, then you can just use that blob asset reference and add the component. If it does not exist, then it actually goes through the process of allocating the memory for the blob assets. And then you just do this little step here, which is add blob asset with custom hash. So again, you pass in the reference to the animation blob reference, and then you pass in your custom hash, which you defined. So
that is doing what you expected add blob asset to do.
Correct. Yeah. But this
Yeah.
is kind of being like a little bit more manual, where you're defining the hash and kind of saying the deduplication stuff. And so again, this was kind of breaking my mental model, because when I did this add blob asset and then I was like debugging the hash that it was printing out, like the player and all the enemies were getting the same hash, which is weird because they were referencing like different scriptable objects. So
Can you uncomment the blob asset and just go to add blob asset reference? Add blob asset, done, that one.
This here?
Have you loaded that assembly? Yeah, blob asset triad, object hash, and so that blob asset's, okay.
So
That's super weird. Yeah, and that's side tangent. Do exactly what Johnny just did whenever you're like confused, and make sure you have all those assemblies loaded in, because the source code is the truth. So just
source code is the truth.
Just take a look at it. Even the documentation from Unity is kind of crap sometimes. So you're like, just look at the source code, see what it does.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can probably dig through the whole triad thing in blob asset store and blah 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 blah. But that's that's probably gonna go deep. And
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Triad, validate blob, default hash, mem copy.
This is where I would be like, probably a few of these things would be slightly new to me. So I would probably like copy and paste this into ChatGPT and like, can you just break down a little bit few, and like most of the lines I'm pretty familiar with and can grasp, but I would be like, I wonder if I understand this properly, and then like,
sure,
that's a very good use for that, to like be able to
that makes sense.
What's going on.
That makes sense. So anyways, that was just kind of like a weird thing that I came across. So again, I would recommend using add blob assets at the very least. But if you're having some errors with that, then add blob asset with custom hash seemed to work well for me until I switched back to add blob asset and everything just worked. No problem. So so there's my quick tip of the week, which is kind of like a little bit of a weird edge case, but seemed to
it's actually like literally one of the points I'm going to make in my thing.
Okay.
So
before we get to that, before we get to that, we do have one other thing that I do want to talk about here, and for our context switch section here. Oh, and actually, before we move along too far, the documentation for creating a blob asset does mention some of the concepts about where is it? Blob assets with baking, register a blob asset with a baker. So this talks about doing the add blob assets, and then it has kind of a little bit of a warning here. And then here's the deduplication with custom hashes, which is kind of what I came across here. So that is available if you do run across that yourself. Okay. Anyways, do you just want to call out real quickly that there is a minor version update to the Unity entities? We have version 1.3.5. As far as the actual entities package go, this is just kind of like a couple. We have an optimization, couple of dependency updates, a documentation fix here, improved build determinism by sorting inputs to build methods. Exception thrown under circumstances when a system was destroyed could break various dots editor windows. A couple minor updates and bug fixes there. It is a little bit strange because the entities graphics package got an update to 1.4.2.
The other one was 1.5,
1.3.5. Yeah. So usually all the packages have been kind of like at the same version, but this one, they're on different, minor versions or whatever the second number is called. But so this one also has the burst dependency updates, updated entities packages dependencies. This also calls out the new procedural motion tag component data type, informs entities graphics that an entity needs to participate in the object motion vector pass. Tag is automatically added for entities that go through the built-in mesh renderer Baker path.
Yeah, do you know what that is?
I do not.
The motion vector pass is a pass where when you're doing motion blur, there's different ways of doing motion blur. One of them is like you detect just the camera velocity. And you sort of smear stuff on the screen because of what the camera is doing. But that's generally not. That's when you're just moving the camera through space. But if stuff is moving, then you need to like tell the GPU about what general direction is this object moving. So then you bake sort of the velocity in world space into some shader data. So that's object motion vector pass. That's like you render to the G buffer some sort of RGB value that sort of represents, like, on this part of the screen with these pixels here, there are some objects generally moving in this direction. So use some fancy shaded math to smear that and make some cool motion blur out of that.
Okay.
So that's what that's about.
Cool. Good to know. And yeah, also enables entities motion vector pass participation for URP. Prune upload buffer pool API request pruning of the upload buffer pool. I feel like I just said a bunch of words.
Yeah.
Most of a fixed for game objects that depend on vertex shader logic to generate procedural motion vectors through object motion vector pass. Will now also do the same when baked to entities and rendered through entities graphics. So yeah, looks like a bunch of support for the
game object
motion vector
depends on
stuff.
vertex shader graph to generate procedural through motion. That's a sentence.
Those were some sentences.
Yes. By the way, on the topic of like graphics is 1.4.2 instead of 3.5. That's like a pretty. I think this is completely the right choice by Unity, but that's like a pretty clear like signaling. Like, these packages are trying to separate and do different things, but they are moving together because they are intertwined as heck in a lot of places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that's just like displays how tricky it is to separate concerns in a game engine.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Also, Unity Mathematics, this one's at 1.3.2. Actually, this one is from way earlier this year, it looks like. But yeah, some fixes on there.
That like the first fix there, if you go back one, it says like fixed math hash crash on blah blah blah.
Yeah,
a thing like that, I would love to see the changelog on that. Like, what's actually the thing that made it crash?
Yeah.
Like,
see the actual commit, like if it's like some
like just a specific thing exactly on just a specific, but I guess it's probably somewhere in like in the compilation of it, since it's like a specific ARM processor.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, continue.
And then physics, this one is also at the 1.3.5. They added motor Jacobians have access to the Jacobian header in the solve methods now. Some documentation updates, burst dependency, Unity test framework dependency, math dependency, entities package dependencies. This one was interesting because I know some people have maybe had some issues with some of the Spring stuff and joints and all this. So use Spring feature in the built-in hinge joint now works correctly. Both joint force values and the constraint relaxation parameters are set to appropriate values in the underlying engine, and the physics simulation behavior now closely matches the behavior in built-in physics. Also fixed a case that could lead to invalid data in the impulse handling within the linear limit Jacobian, and limits and hinge joint authoring components enabled via the use limits option are now respected when the use Spring option is enabled.
Sounds like they had some Spring fixes to do for a while.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think I saw like maybe some people talking on Discord about some issues with springs or joints. So hopefully things are if not fixed, on the right path.
Also, callback. I had issues with the Unity physics somewhere in just through the instruction. I don't remember exactly the context, but I remember digging through the source code of Unity physics to like, and not that I thought I would find a bug and fix it, just so I can like understand where am I doing something wrong. And I ended up in the Jacobian calculation thingy, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So then I had a deep conversation with ChatGPT for like 20 minutes about what exactly is going on with the what is Jacobians and stuff, and then, like, it came out of it like, okay, well, all right. Doesn't really tell me what the problem is with my code, but
But now
I
you
know
have a little bit more knowledge about
what's going on. So yeah, I'm just whenever I'm like confused and like I think I should know this, then I just go deep, and that would usually entail documentations until 2 a.m. But now it's more about ChatGPT for me.
It's good. That's very
Yeah.
good. Okay. So anyways, we can go ahead and move on to our main portion of the show, our instruction set. We're going to be talking to us a little bit about some physics custom baking stuff. Why don't you again give a little overview about what you're doing here and introduction to what you're going to be showcasing.
Yeah. Let's start. I just realized I should close a few things and only have what I. Let's see if I can first of all start the screen share, because that has some tendency of crashing my computer every once in a while. I don't think it will be an issue. And so this is a conversation I had like very early on in the dots whole debacle, like maybe 5 years ago almost. And it was basically like the differences between authoring data and runtime data is like something that's like was completely new to me. And like I haven't never thought about it until Dots like sort of forcibly introduced it onto me. And me and Rasmus from Stanlock, we talked about it at length, and he was like, people underappreciate how much that actually helps in situations. So I was just going to show like an example here. I'm trying to just remove everything so I can just have what I need on the screen and share it. Let's see. Share screen. Let's see if I crash. Woohoo.
Okay.
All right. Oh yeah, you don't see it yet. I'm just gonna make sure that I have enough scaling. 150% was the thing that was best, right?
I mean, I use 250, but I'm on a 4K display.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I'm not.
sharing.
I don't have that much resolution. There we go. All right, let's see here. So I don't spoil everything. Will this? There we go. Okay, so now, so the idea is that this hasn't applied much to me during my own game development because I'm just one person, so I don't really have this issue in that way. But this is V-Rising, I know, have had this issue, and they had like used baking to like help with it. And that's like, you have a situation where the designer has set up something. I have like some example here with the imagine this thing here being something like a chain that's supposed to do something. I don't know, a dangling wire from somewhere, and you can
Floppy
shoot
bits.
Yeah, floppy bits. My so original and funny name. Comic over here. Yeah, and you have this where like it's important to realize, like when a designer or a graphical artist sits with this, they can be like, this is the way I want to specify the thing that I want to make. So you can almost like sort of think a bit like, okay, let's just capture all the values in the authoring component that we're gonna use. And like obviously sometimes it's tweaking, and the designer or the artist doesn't really know where they're headed with it, but they tweak with the tools they got, and then they find something that works, and then they're happy with that, right? But like you can just, I know that a lot of like units and stuff in V-Rising was early on set up in a specific way and with the authoring, and then you can and the representation of the runtime kept changing, but there were zero changes to the prefab in a lot of cases. And I don't think people maybe since this isn't really a case that matters in normal Unity, because like whatever you are doing in the game object and mono behavior is whatever is going to go on in the runtime, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
might have some setup code and some manipulation, but generally speaking, it's like, yeah, this is the game objects and they are interacting.
Unless you're like creating some crazy custom tools or something like that.
Yes, yes, that was my second. You can, of course, build a lot of tooling, and I encourage that a lot. I actually had a talk about tooling on our local conference 2 weeks ago, where we basically just like screamed at students, like, do more tooling. It's so underrated.
Which, by the way, another great use case for something like ChatGPT, because a lot of that tooling stuff is just kind of like simple, repetitive code where it's like, you're not really like making any like crazy scientific breakthroughs by writing some of the stuff. It's just like, a lot of just a large volume of code that needs to get written. And if you can kind of describe that in a simple way and, ChatGPT can print out something predictable for you.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Good.
Yeah. I actually don't use ChatGPT that much for tooling. I'm going to actually start doing that because that's just something I haven't thought about that much, but that's a good point. Good tip. I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah,
it's not like I haven't used it. I usually do it for like custom drawers or something, because that I always forget about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but like an actual custom inspector, I usually just type that out by hand. But I'm like realizing, why do I do that? I should just like write these things in a nice looking way for me, please. Bye. Yeah. So that's a very good use case. All right, so we can take a look at what's happening here. So this is some random thing I created where I can do like control point. You can do like this. Whee! So and since there's no like thing in the middle of them, it's hard to see who is connected to who. But you can see there, yeah. So this is what's called a Verlet simulation. Or verlet. I don't know. It's supposedly French, and the T is silent or something. Yeah, I think I talked to somebody from. What's his the 4-letter acronym guy?
You mean Wayne Games?
Wayne Games. Yeah.
Mark.
Mark. Yeah. Good. You're better with names. I forget about everybody. Yeah. Anyway, I talked to him, and he's from France, right? I think.
Yeah.
And he was like, didn't at all recognize that it was supposed to be called Verlet because it's French. And like, I don't know. You're French. I thought you would know that language. Apparently, it's not like a common thing in the French language. So like, it doesn't really mean anything in French either.
It was like someone's name or something, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. The other type is the thing that used for rigid body is called Euler, and you recognize. That's
of course,
Euler integration. So this is Verlet integration with constraints. So that's generally speaking how you make secondary animation for secondary animation. Yeah, physics animation for like when you like put on like a cape. For example, cloth is made.
Kind of a cloth simulation or something.
Yeah. Or one strand things like a braided hair or something like that. That doesn't need to be actual 3D structure, just a simple link. So the way this works is like all of this is straight up this script with these children underneath. And I haven't actually tested this, but I think I can just add another one and it will just do the thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and this way you can see how some artist could maybe like, yeah, this is what I want to be. And like, obviously this graphical representation is a little bit of a tricky situation because that might need some custom spline or GPU shading thing, custom vertex shading thing to, if this is like a spline that should follow the points or whatever. But generally speaking, you can see here how, I can just add whatever, or I can remove. I guess that didn't like it. What? Screw it. It doesn't matter. That's the point. We're going to look into the different things and why it's the nuances of why it's like nice. So if we take a look at the code, this we can minimize this from the beginning, and we can take a look at this flappy bits. So it just got one single one friction, which is just like so it doesn't keep its momentum forever. That's basically it. I have a question. Now I here distracted. I'm curious about it. Right, make the question. I will answer it.
Ask away.
Yeah, ask away. So here is the root object, right? And then I'm just iterating while there's any child. So obviously there can be some issues here where if you have several child, they will just do weird things. So there's still like edge cases that you need to be aware of if you're gonna let designers loose on this, so they don't screw up because they like, oh, I'm gonna add so many children to they need to use it the way you intended it. Put all of this in a chain, in a list, and then I create this native list with entities, and then I put that. So I just like iterate through and just create the list of all the child by child in the hierarchy, and then I put that onto the in a buffer element data. So this is a dynamic buffer. We have several. We can have how many we want associated with a single entity. So just on the root object, these are entities from all the children from this root. That's basically what I do. And then I also save away the friction. We can maybe do like this so you see a little bit more what's going on here. I'm not a fan of unreadable code like that. So I save away the friction just in a root component here.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's it in the authoring. So I just save this away because this is all the information I need to be able to do something with this in the baking step. So then if you make a system, and we have gone through this, but I'm just like going through the basics again, so people are following who maybe have forgotten or haven't seen a baking system. So you can just inherit from iSystem or system base, put it.
Is there any reason that you chose system base over iSystem for this case? I'm
lazy. iSystem is like more verbose to write in, and I don't need a performance for a baking system. So that's basically it. I tend to use the iSystem all the time when I can in runtime, but in other places when it doesn't matter, I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit easier, flexible to work with managed memory on average. So I'm just system based. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so this is he's trolling me. Is mayonnaise an instrument? That's a good question. Yes, mayonnaise is an instrument.
It's an instrument for calories.
Good one.
There you go.
All right. So if you add this these two things, so you put it in this post baking system and you mark it with this world system filter. Like this, and this I'm going to post to the GitHub for this if anybody wants it for reference. Then this thing is going to run right after when you have like saved everything and it's just saving the subscene, so it's like baking down, it's reading this, and then it's after all of these bakers have gone through in the subscene, then it runs these post baking systems to, like, if you want to adjust stuff after all the context is put together, sort of. And the reason I do this is because I want to add this chain. I want to add components to all of the balls or spheres in the children, and I can't add components to an entity I'm not currently baking.
Yeah.
You remember this problem, right?
Oh yeah, it happens to me all the time.
Yes, and you also remember that I showed you like maybe a month ago or maybe 5 weeks ago how I went into the baking source code of entities in just read instruction
Right,
and just
right.
commented out those errors, just like so I could actually add components to something that wasn't me. It's still going on. Okay, let's focus. So the reason why I do is because like I get these references to the to all my children, right? I'm iterating through my children and finding all of the parts of the chain, and I would like to be able to put on the Verlet node on them. So this is the thing that keeps track and do the simulation part of it anyway.
Yeah.
But I can't add it to an entity I'm not on. So that means like I can add it to floppy bits, but I can't add it to any of these.
Right.
That
And you still want to be able to control like data values from that top level thing, right?
Yeah, I want it to. I want that one to be like the whole thing, and like everything else is just like a matter of like where the artist is placing it in the world, and they should use that as the data to do this stuff, right? So then later here in this baking, I pick up this root chain and the dynamic buffer, which has the chain, right? And what I essentially do here is that I go through this link, take out the position, and we can start with these actually. Make sure that its local position is its world position, and so it doesn't have any parent or child, because there's no reason to have this in a hierarchy anymore. They're gonna live in world space, all of them.
So you're putting all these entities, even though they're in a hierarchy in the subscene and all that, you're splitting them all out to basically all be essentially in a flat hierarchy.
Yes, because the only reason they are like that is because I want it to be easily manipulated and configurable for the artist if they want to set up a specific start state.
Okay.
Yeah, and that hierarchy helps with that.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's like exclusively only for authoring purposes. Otherwise, I'm a big fan of having as few game objects as possible, basically. So I will come to that detail a little bit later and talk about that concept. So pulling out the position, the world position from local to world, and putting that into the local transform, and then removing these two, parent and child, and that just like puts it out of the hierarchy completely. It's still got its local to world and local transform, but since it's in world position, they are the same. One of them is just used to be able to manipulate it, the transform wise like normal, and the other one, local to transform, it's the one used when it's rendering. And this is these nuances most the dots programmers knows about, but that's the thing you have to the hoops you have to go through a little bit, but it works very similar to transform in Unity, normal Unity. It's just a little bit differently structured,
right?
Yes. And then like I take out this world position, and then I measure the distance between me and my last one. So I start on the first position here, and then every iteration I measure the distance between
so
the
if they're not evenly spaced out, like if one's like the first two are further apart and the next one is like really close and the next one's maybe kind of in the middle.
Yep. Then
like you kind of need to keep track of all that, I'm assuming, for the algorithm that you're running.
Yes. So and it's annoying now that this thing starts to throw errors for some reason. I think it's because like my baker is not exactly as it wants to be, but if we reload it here maybe, and we just like we can take this one and we move it like this and we save that. I haven't actually tried that. Yeah, okay, so that works. Says the same thing. So that's that distance there is measured in the baking process to be able to. So you can see how this could be something that an artist wants to adjust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they don't really care about anything else. They're like, oh,
in a different way. Yeah.
Nice object here. Let me play around with them and make my super cool setup. Right. And the programmer is like, yes, have fun. Bye.
Have at it.
Yes. So then I do all of this, add this, and here in the post baking system, I can easily, you know, add all of the different components that I need for to do this. And this part is honestly not like, ooh, cool baking system. No, I would rather have it in the baker, because
Right.
there's,
Yeah.
but I think it's they have like a way where they can do incremental baking in a way that I think prohibits them from being able to do this add
Mm,
components to any entity whenever. So they have like a specific structure around it that like forces them. So when you do add component and you don't put in the actual currently baking entity, it's like, no, you can't do this. You need to add this through the baker on that on that authoring component. Yeah. Anyway, so this is the way you do it, and I add do this through a component. Are you opening?
oh, sorry. I'm just fiddling
It's
around
fine.
with things over here.
It's fine. I was distracted for a second there. No, no problem. And this I do it through a entity command buffer. And I remember we have said a few times, never use entity command buffer unless you have to. And this is one of those cases where it's like, this is super annoying to do without entity command buffer. And this is not runtime in any shape way. This is just baking in the background when you're developing.
Right.
So the performance hit of this is completely irrelevant. So in this case, it's just super easy to do this with the command entity command buffer. Yes. So that's it. And then we can take a look at the actual simulation code. So here first, and this is me just being very tired and didn't come up with a better way to control the thing. So I just like in the first frame, when I don't have a reference to any control, I just create the control, just a random game object. So this is maybe something that's not obvious to new dots programmers, that in an actual system base, and yeah, I know it's not an I system because I'm lazy, but there's no reason for
Yeah,
you to not
you can
be
still do
able
this
to.
in iSystem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this part exactly. It's just for debugging purposes, and this has to be in a mono behavior because, or system based, because it's managed memory. But otherwise, the rest of it has nothing to do with the system based or iSystem. Authoring, face baking, initiating pre-baking, system baking, excuse, yeah, a lot of bakers. Yeah. So in this thing here, this only just controls the top node, the root. I'm occurring on the root chain root. That's I didn't think about that. That was a fun name.
It makes sense, I guess.
Root chain root. Sort of. I think I just refactored it and forgot I had two roots in it. That's basically what happened. And then I do some preparation for some timing thing. Then I go through all this Verlet. And like I said, if you search for Verlet, I haven't even spelled it correct. Verlet.
Verlet.
That's Verlet. That's how you spell it. If you search for Verlet integration on Steam or on Google,
On Steam, play the Verlet integration.
There's actually a game made Verlet Swing. It's called. It's made by friends of mine. That is basically made on this math thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
It's on the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So this is basically making the thing follow each other. This is a whole topic by itself, but the source code will be online then after, so you can dig into it if you want. And then this node constraints, that's what's keeping the nodes from pulling apart, just holding them on a set length. And this is where the length that I in the post baking where I calculated the actual length between the objects, that's where the length is used. And every frame is just adjust this point so they are on exactly the set amount from each other. So yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. Well, I don't know. It seems pretty straightforward, but I guess it's something to get into because it's a big part of dots to be able to bake and do a nice thing. So the thing here that I think people sometimes are missing is like, this is setup code. that you can write the equivalent thing for a game object. There's no problem. All of this is trivial, not trivial, but like this is the same thing to do this in game object. But you get the baked, already placed out bits in perfect order in a subscene, loading in without a single line of code running to set up anything. So
Right.
when you start a subscene with just super complex things set up, and if you have just physics, if you have just bakers that just does everything that you can imagine to pre-calculate these different things, then you can just avoid so much loading time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I had shown that actually off a little bit ago when I did that little like 100 player car simulation thing, where I actually did a flow field pathfinding in the world, like to basically map out the track that all the AI would follow. And then I had like a super inefficient and kind of step that like used a bunch of like Unity spline math to like determine like the closest point for any given cell, and like doing like getting the tangent and a bunch of like random things like that.
Yeah.
And in the end, before I like basically air quotes shipped the game, like I just increased the resolution of the grid, so it was like doing like a ton of these calculations, and it actually took like 10 minutes to run this whole baking process.
Oh,
But again, I
wow.
just baked that all down into a sub scene. It was actually a separate sub scene than like where all my main entities were living.
Yeah.
And then once that was like baked away and set ready to go, anytime someone loaded up the game on their machine, it had that whole entire flow field
Yeah.
just available to them.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, and I'm gonna show off like deluxe version of this, how it's made in Just Read Instruction, just so people know. But I want to make a few points exactly on this thing, like pre-calculating. Yeah, because I think Mike Acton in this OG CPP Con 2012 or 13, whatever it is, this one that started it all, almost like
The one
in
that
his
started
talk.
it all.
Yes, he's saying, he's like going through a different things, and like how do you like, oh, this is terrible code, how do we do this, and this is terrible code, how do we do this, and then in a lot of times he's like, okay, we can do XYZ, or we can pre-calculate this as a hash and then push it back in time. That's the phrase he uses, and I love that phrase, push it back in time. Like, how early from the first line code written or the first thing in the project setup to whenever the code is executing on the end computer, on the target computer, how far back in that whole process can you push the calculation? Can you do it so like you're just calculating this once when you set up the specific thing with a tooling, and like the tooling just calculates everything for you and it's just done? Or do you do it like as an end baking thing before you build? Or do you do it so it's calculated when you start the game? Or do you do it when you load the game? Or do you do it every frame when you use it? Like, how far back in the future can you push it? And how much time on different CPUs, whether it's yours in the development studio or the end user, how much CPU time can you save by just pushing it back in time? And I think Baker is like very good way of like, here we have if you just make this happen in the Baker, none of your customers will have to spend any CPU
100%.
time on this.
That's a cool phrase. I like that. Push it back in time.
Yeah. And like, if you when you actually start thinking about it and like looking through whatever you're doing with your code to calculate stuff on the CPU, you're like, there's surprising amount of stuff that you can just push back in time and just do this, have these values pre-calculated and just save them to some file. So yeah, that's, yeah, I don't know, in software they have I'm just distracted slightly with this comment here. I have a baker to make a collider, but I don't have a GO with a collider. I guarantee you I generate it from the baker.
Yeah, so he's basically making his own custom collider using maybe some input values or just kind of like a generic thing. So
Yeah, a perfect example. Yeah,
100%.
exactly. And since I am optimizing the loading times for Sulfur a lot, and they have generated maps, like procedural generated maps that like steps into chunks of like long intricate ways that you walk and to find from start to the end. I'm just trying to find everywhere that something is done that doesn't need to be done on the end user, because like the loading times are long as they are, because it's a procedural generated levels. So yeah, I think that's and with this thing, for example, this length and all of this, like obviously the length is implied in these game objects here with the like here, the -3, like that's it's nothing to pre-calculate. But the thing is that with the baker and when the ECS format, if you can call it a format, then you putting the bits into like into the exact layout they will execute in. So you just like picking up a tray of bits from the hard drive and just putting it down in memory and just go. There's no pre-processing of it, and your loading times are amazing because of it. So people should pre-calculate as much as possible in the baker and make super cool artist tools because with that feature. So yeah,
I concur.
yeah. Let me show you how this looks in Just Read Instructions, where this is like taken to
Well, here,
10.
before you move on, real quick,
Yeah.
can you just show the Verlet integration function? I just want to see like how complex it is. Like you don't need to go into detail on it, but I just kind of want to see like generally what it looks like.
Do you want me to explain the roads? Lines?
I mean, actually, yeah, it's not that complicated. I mean, yeah, feel free to just do a quick little overview on it.
So force is just gravity times mass, and that sort of makes sense a little bit.
Yep.
And then basically what's happening here is that I am taking the difference between the last position and the new position, the last position and the current position, the delta. So like, oh, this is last frame and this is this frame, and using that to calculate the next frame. So there's no velocity. The velocity is implied through that which frame you were last frame, which position you were on the last frame.
Okay.
So it means in practice, or pragmatically speaking, like your velocity is always sort of in sync with whatever positioning you're doing with the object. You're sort of reversing the concept of position and velocity with each other.
Okay.
And it makes it a lot easier to deal with springs, for example. That's a deep thing, but anyway, so yeah, the velocity is implied through the last position's frame, and then you're using some time scaling to calculate next position. And then you're making sure that you're saving the last position, so you have that for the last frame, next frame. And then there's a movement, so this is from my current position to the next frame, or the coming frame that I'm about to do. And then that movement times some damping here. So then you can see like it's this position currently plus really just like the delta for this frame's movement, and then times some damping value.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
And then where does the point where you have the control point come in? Is that like a couple?
The control point is here, so that just sets so this is the thing, like the control point just sets the position of it, and because like
it basically just sets the position of the first node essentially.
Yeah, and think of it like that. If you have, this is the last frame's position, and this is my position now, and then like I take the control point and I just drag this position over here, then the velocity for the next frame is implied through the delta already. So there's
because you know the time, you know the distance, and then you can obviously
Yeah,
having
and
the
yeah,
distance over time.
because I moved the position, I implicitly changed the velocity of it.
Right, yeah.
Because it's just implied from the last frame.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever
Velocity
I
is
do,
distance over time. So if you have the distance and you have the time,
yeah.
you have the velocity.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why you phrased it like that. Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Completely. And that means also that when I have the links, so this basically, other is static. I just realized I turned this around a little bit. This should be the other way around. For some reason it works. That's funny.
I don't know
doesn't-
why this works, but it does.
Yeah, actually, I'm a little bit confused right now, but I think I just turned it around twice or something. So ignore that. This says other is static. It should be, this is when both of them are dynamic. So this is basically, if you have these two, they're like calculating their midpoint, and if they're pulled apart a little bit extra, then you just pull them in again to the exact distance that you want. And because their position makes their velocity, it's like already implied. You just move the position and the velocity is correct because it's implied. But yeah, that's a deep, I think, three blue, one brown, or is it the other way around? That's
Something like that. Yeah.
that math channel.
Yeah.
You can probably dig deep with that guy and find out exactly what's going on. So that's good.
Cool. Yeah. No, I just kind of
So-
wanted to see, generally what that looked like. But yeah, seems pretty simple.
Yeah. So let me show you how this looks on I'm looking at something different. This is not
3
really
brown,
relevant.
1 blue.
3 brown, 1 blue. That's the way. There was the other way around. Shotgun. So this is the Just Read Instruction project. So this one has a bunch of cables, and I'm going to just swap out the material here because the material is a little bit specific kind of shader on it. So here we can see, well, I thought I would be able to see it clearly. No, give me a second. I'm just going to need to find the actual right material. There, base map. There we have. So now you can see it a little bit. So this is one of these like splines that I want to simulate. And if we look at the component, so this is what then what would be upgraded. The other one I showed was basically the first version of what you're looking at right now. So simulated chain. So we have a setup type, generated or defined. We have here then, and we can move this down. And if I take a look here, predefined nodes, then you can see how the 3 nodes here are like set up to follow the shape of the cable. Artist work, right? Or I mean, anybody can do it, but it's something that the artists generally work with.
Yeah, you kind of define the initial general shape of what that chain is.
Yeah. And then using static end node, that's, if you want to have the end stuck to something, or if it's going to be completely free. So if you leave this null, it will interpret that this end will not be attached to anything. It will just dangle by itself. And then this is basically a bunch of information on how I do the spline skinning. So this has custom Bezier GPU based thing to be able to interpolate between the different nodes in a smooth way. And I've made my own skinning code to do this, which is kind of complicated. And it's not really relevant for this topic like that. But you can see here how this is a big like thing that just does a bunch of things. And what you see here does not reflect the runtime data basically much at all. Right. So like I just take this, which was me, like how can I except for these things here, which is skinning in settings, which is kind of complicated. All of these predefined nodes, just like, oh, it's following the spline, and it's like an end node, and you can add in different defined nodes and blah blah blah. All of these are like, how is the easiest way to set up this kind of a spline simulation from a cool artist perspective? So this is what I came up with. And then in the behind the scenes here,
let me show you the mother of bakers. Um,
The mother of all bakers.
so here we have the spline simulated chain thing, and a bunch of different custom types here to be able to set up. And then we're coming down here, and then we're starting to go on. And you can see here I have I'm using the deprecated
before
versions.
you're passing in entity.
Yeah. And then I'm just starting to calculate like just a billion different things for how to set up the exactly the node lists and the offsets and the indexing and
if else's and for eaches.
Yes. And then mark for destruction. So I remove a bunch of these then just like in this here. I basically use the transforms that gets baked to entities. I use them. Here I have an option for they don't end up as entities, and this is also a point. So you would, if you continued with this thing, this system, you would realize after a while that these doesn't need to be entities unless they're actually different blobs, like spheres that's going to be drawn out. If they are a spline that's rendered with one draw call, then they need to be one entity, and all of these sub positions should really be positions in a dynamic buffer or something. So you have like something where this is a spline, it's one entity, and it's contained all its simulation in a dynamic buffer or whatever data format you want. And then you send that over to the GPU, and that does some cool skinning or animation or whatever you need to do on the GPU to make it look good. But this thing here never changes. You can just, in the baker, throw out the entities you don't need. Oh yeah, these entities or this objects that the artist used to set this up neatly, we just throw them out.
Even there like a specific thing inside the Baker API where it's like a baking only entity.
Yes, and you also have the baking type, which thrown away after baking and stuff. Mark for destruction is my thing. I don't remember. I probably just didn't read the documentation well enough to realize there was a mark for destruction or already built in. But it does the same thing. So yeah, as Johnny said, look on what was the name of it?
I think it's when you do the get entity, you can like mark it as a baking only entity. Let me pull that up real quick.
In the baker.
Yeah. So there's struct baking only entity.
Yeah, baking only entity. Entity will be stripped out before it appears in live game. Yep, that's it.
But I think it's actually in. Yeah, there's a way that you can mark an entity as a baking only entity, but
I think probably that thing. Well, baking. Yeah, I mean, Johnny, isn't this correct?
I mean, that probably would work, but I thought there was another way where it was like a flag or something that you pass into like the get entity method, but I'm sure that would work. Yeah,
I think it will be stripped out before it appears.
I mean,
yeah. So that's the way I should. In this case, when then I inevitably upgrades this to like, oh, it shouldn't be individual game objects or entities. It should be one entity with all the simulation contained. Then whatever game object used in the authoring to be able to neatly set this up, we just tag with whatever baking system we need to get rid of them or to do what we want with them. And this, doesn't concern anybody else than the programmer who actually is like, all right, we're going to upgrade our spline simulation and we need to optimize it more. And then they do a new runtime representation of it. And nothing changes in the authoring in the assets of the authoring of the game. So yeah, and I think if I can find it here, actually no, but I'm just gonna turn on how it looks in the game, actually, in just read instructions, so you can see. So yeah, so that's I'm realizing that it's already 10 to 12 here, so I can
Yeah.
just go ahead and show it how this looks. And this is I've tuned it up a little bit and removed some stuff so you don't
So it's a little bit more obvious about what's going on. Yeah, nice. Looks
so
good.
that's, and this is basically to, you know, get a good feel for when you're shooting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
and
all is like, yeah, reacts and yeah.
yeah.
And so
And
in
I
that case, you're basically just using the gun as the control points, right?
Yep.
Because you have two attach points, so you essentially have two control points. So it's kind of pushing
Yep.
forces from both sides.
Yep. And there's like nothing really like magic around this more than it's like it's fine tuned with stiffness and stuff a little bit.
It's a
Nice
good tube shake.
Yeah, it's actually now this has very low damping in the game, in action, in the build game. And it has more damping because it looks a little bit stupid when it's like flipping
It's all
around this
going
much.
all over the place. Yeah.
But it's the details, it's the nuances that matters, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and
it's like one of those little things where it's like most people probably won't like consciously like see that, but it just kind of like fits in the overall
yeah, and
part of the
just
thing that like makes it feel more real, that you don't like really know specifically why.
Yes, and I love those details. I just want to if people just comes out of an A/B testing with the feature I've implemented and they're like, it felt better. I don't know why it felt better. That's like, oh, I love it. That's so awesome. If I can make it feel better without even knowing, then like that's the magic of video game.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Yeah. So I'm all for that. And you can see also like in the front of the game of the gun, you have this little flappy hinge thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
That has a similar thing. It's a baker set up with a specific thing, and the implementation behind it have changed like 2 times. And like it doesn't really matter for me when I was my own graphical artist and effects developer and all of that. But if I had a graphical artist, he would be like, "Oh, nice, you made all of the stuff faster," and I had still the same implementation I had a year ago, and nothing had to be, you know, tediously changed by a person just scrolling down
like,
50
can
assets.
you go through all the guns and just drag these new things in here and spend a week doing that?
Yeah. Oh, how now nice comment.
Yeah, that is a super nice comment. I was just reading that, so yeah, we really do appreciate it, and always glad to know that you guys are finding value out of these streams and the content we put out. So
yes, it's awesome. It's very, very nice to see that kind of a comment. So yeah, and also I can show another slight variation on this, where actually I can probably just play it and show it first how it looks in the game, and then so this is a weird thing. Maybe it looks better when I go out here a little bit. So look at the antenna to the right. I don't know if you can tell it, but it's like flapping a little bit.
I see it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. It should be a little bit looser because it's just a fun effect. Gatling gun. Let's see if I can. Oh, wrong. That's the search button. Gatling gun, and then the antenna, and that has the same thing where I need to like put a normal. That's the glitch blue. Give me a second here. Cylinder, that one. I need to just. So there we have the antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have the same simulated chain, and here is generated. So it just comes up with an additional node with a specific offset
just automatically,
and just hooks that up with a specific vertex skinning system. Like, oh yeah, this mesh, yeah, I can hook this up to the upper and a new imaginary node up there that will simulate with some stiffness. So yeah,
Yeah, this is super cool. I had no idea that you went like to this like granular detail about like, taking advantage of like the custom baking systems to like just make an antenna like flopping around. And
yeah. I made all except for the cloth simulations in Battlerite. I made all of these effects in Battlerite,
oh,
coded
okay.
all of the physics for all of them, and we had a lot of these kind of issues where we like, we need to like fix like this
Like, yeah, if you change
hinge,
your
yeah, and it's like,
algorithm and then
and
it's
it
like,
changed
okay,
a
all
little
your
bit,
input
and like,
data changes now. And
yeah, and yeah, and or for that matter, like somebody just like jumping in and like wanted to add some new stuff, and then like, uh, oh, there's a new component. I haven't seen this one before. What's this? Oh yeah, we had to swap it out. The last one, like we made a new one, and like this one is a little bit more complicated, and like you need to think about this and this and this, and like, and obviously you can make some of this stuff without a specific baker, but the baker is just like such a nice thing to just wrap it up in a nice bow tie and then ship it to the customer, both to the customer and to your designers. It's like it's a two-way street from,
2 for 1.
yeah, you just like, yes, this is the way. And since Unity did not have a built-in kind of a thought around that before, and most games, most big game studios have this tooling. They do this. They have to do this. You have to pre-bake and pre-calculate a bazillion things to make the game run fast, like GTA or whatever.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
so getting this through like the new developers of Unity, and like, use the baker. Don't use the customer CPU. Use the baker. Yeah. So yeah, that's my topic. That's how you can go from a simple little demo and setting up a few more things, and then just slowly adding features and letting your artist have a nice, easy interface that just slightly upgrades over time, and it's like always just improving in the background, and in the end, customer never have to do any setup code because everything just comes pre-baked perfectly in the right zeros and ones order.
Yeah. 100%. And yeah, by the way, that little sample project you made, you do have the code available on GitHub. So if you want to maybe drop the link down in the chat, and then I can also update it in the description of the video as well for people watching afterwards.
Yes, I do like this. See if that works.
Yep.
Cool. I'm not gonna update with my correct spelling of relay. Well, yes, I should. So people, maybe if somebody search for it, maybe they search for the wrong term since it's misspelled. I need to push that.
Oh.
Yeah, verte or something. I don't know what I spelled. Yeah, so I should do that after the stream.
Vele.
Yeah.
Vere, I think.
Vere, that was the
Yeah,
word. Yeah. My lazy, slow, slightly. What's the name of the when you are not as good with written words? Dyslexic.
Oh, okay.
Slight dyslexicness is just creeping up a little bit when I get tired.
I get it.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, you're all set with that. We want to kind of move into our kind of closing segments of the show here.
Yes.
Cool. Well, now we are at the part where we call the dynamic allocation, where we just kind of have some fun things to share with the community. So you've been working on a project for a little while now, and why don't you tell us the latest with that?
Oh,
you just cut out. I think your thing, it's showing you is muted, actually. And he's gone. Wait. They will need to connect their mic and cam before you can add them to stream.
am I back?
Yeah.
What the hell? I think I bumped the mic cord.
Oh, the little USB cord. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. You said I was working on something, and it's maybe not screen share crash. That would be something. Yeah. I should stop my screen share just to be safe. Yeah. been helping out some friends in Stockholm who's making a super cool game. I've talked about it several times, including on this stream. But now is the Steam Next Fest. So the game has an updated. I'll post the link here also. Updated demo, and we got I don't know how you're supposed to say this when you're a consultant. I'm very proud to be a part of the little part of the thing, but they are made a super cool game, and they are getting so good reviews. So many people are loving this stuff, so make sure to try out the latest demo on Steam now when the next fest is going hard. And early access is actually 28th of October, so it's like less than 2 weeks away.
It's coming up. That's
So
coming up.
my crunching is starting to crunch.
The crunching is crunching.
Yes. Did you see that stat? If you back out, like a little, this is crazy. They have played. People have played the game on average for 3 hours and 14 minutes.
Just for the demo?
Just for the demo.
Wow. You mother sulfurs.
Yes, so it's a roguelite, I guess, technically, I think.
Okay, so it's like very high replayability.
Yeah, you just pick up just random shit everywhere that you just build into random shit that shoots stuff at enemies. So it's like a very fun, comic style of a roguelike in that way, and it's very, very cute.
And real quick, why don't you say what kinds of things you're doing in the project?
So I don't remember which parts are completely under NDA. Well, not under NDA, but the Switch thing. It's coming. It's going to come to all of the consoles. That's basically the main thing. And there's a bunch of loading times that needs to be fixed, except mainly for Switch. So I've been rebuilding the whole generator system, map generator. So the map is generated in the loading screen, and before on a good computer with the bad seed or bad luck, you could spend like 30 seconds 40 seconds generating a map on like a super modern computer. I reduced that to maybe 2 seconds, something like that, and most of that is just instantiating a bunch of pooling objects, which that's like the hardest limit in Unity there is. Like instantiate just goes slow, but we have some plans for that too. So that's I've been working on, and then it's just basically just runtime performance, so loading times and runtime performance, and a bunch of bug fixes also. So the not so flashy parts, they're just nice things that needs to be done part.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, cool, exciting times. That Sulfur is just about ready to be out in early access in 10 days here.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to because I should probably check out the demo or something at least.
It is like really fun. I haven't played it a lot because I'm so focused on making the game, but I don't play any game basically, and I just like got hooked into this the one time I played it before I started working on it. I just ended up just like going around because shooting enemies are super satisfying. So I should add like one of the things that is so cool, and I don't know if this trailer is showing it, but when you shoot somebody, you like mask out a part of their texture and show flesh texture behind. So you like shoot through their stomach and reveal a cartoonish flesh texture behind.
Almost like an X-ray kind of thing.
It's sort of, and it's because it's just in 2D. It's just the artist Simon has just painted like a flesh version of all of the enemies.
Oh, cool!
And your gun hits are just like painting through and revealing and that's a shading issue I need to deal with. That is very complex. That I had to because like half the game is just spent on rendering these things because it's so complex shaders.
That's super cool.
But it's like you can just spray on the corpses on the floor and just like paint them
basically just de-skin them.
yes it's very satisfying and looks awful and super cute at the same time. And very, very nice weapon animations and all of that. So yeah, it's got a ton of things going for it.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, check out Sulfur. It's a fun little thing there.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, for my dynamic allocation, I have something just absolutely ridiculous to share with the community. So I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I'm competing in a jiu-jitsu tournament this weekend. Now, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not necessarily always the most interesting or exciting thing to watch. However, hopefully this will be at least a little bit interesting for some of you. Let me introduce you all to Car Jitsu Championship. This is where we lock two grown men inside of a car, buckled up in the front seat, and they train jujitsu on each other.
What the fuck? Sorry. This is so stupid and so amazing at the same time.
Right. And so you can use anything inside the car. So you can see this guy's grabbing the seatbelt. He's trying to like choke the guy out using the seatbelt. Like, or you can do just like regular jujitsu moves, like a guillotine, like what he's doing right here. But I mean, you have obviously like very limited space to work with. So I came across this one time, and it is ridiculous.
I mean, what somebody was just having a smoke or something, and like,
like,
what if we just sat in a car?
In the car.
Damn, that's so weird. I love it. I gotta see one of these. Oh damn! Yeah, that looks kind of terrifying at the same time.
It's literally just a car inside of a warehouse, and they got like referees and all the lights and everything. The GoPros inside, you see.
Whoa! And now, of course, they're switching sides.
This finish actually is pretty brutal right here.
Using the cigarette lighter, yeah. Well,
no.
I would expect this car to be a little bit newer than to have a cigarette lighter.
So this is kind of crazy what ends up happening. Like this guy's head gets, like, the guy on the bottom, his head is like basically on the center console. This guy like puts his shin across his throat, and then he's like pulling on the steering wheel to put pressure down, and you see him tap out right there. Like that's something you can't do in regular jiu-jitsu, because like you can just like roll out of it or something, but like when you're trapped inside of a car like this,
you can have like leverage from a physical grappling hook. Oh damn. That's crazy. Yeah, somebody had said, is it named Road Rage? It should be named Road Rage.
Car Jitsu Championship right here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a proper dynamic allocation. Very dynamic.
Oh yeah, very very dynamic. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, anyways, doing a jiu-jitsu tournament this weekend. Although I don't know, I said I was doing a little bit of a weight cut, but last I checked, there wasn't anybody even in my bracket.
Well, are you going to just hit lighter or heavier people?
So yeah, I'm gonna see if they updated my bracket to like match me up against somebody. Oh, they made it private, but yeah, so we'll see what ends up going on. I'm assuming when I go to weigh in, they'll tell me who I'm going up against, but so I may just end up getting paired with like someone in a heavier division, which whatever. I signed up for 2 divisions. I'm doing like my weight class and then the open weight class.
Right, yeah.
And then the only guy in the open weight class right now is a guy who's like 50 pounds heavier than me. So it's like that's 20, 25 kilos.
And you're a tall dude, and that dude gotta be big.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I'm a skinny. I'm very light for my height.
Ah, right. Yeah. In good shape.
Yeah.
Not skinny, good shape. It sounds like Taduki has some experience fighting in a car. Don't fight in a car, please. That's probably bad. Well, maybe
you never know. You never know when you're gonna need it.
Rumble once in a while, Tobias. No, I'm not that against physical. I think some people are like, yeah, you need to do some, like jiu-jitsu or something and get humbled.
You get your floor ball though.
Yeah, I think Lex Friedman or Joe Rogan or some of those popular martial arts dudes have like said like you can't argue with it, and that's like a thing to learn instinctively in your body. Like, oh, you just get choked out and you can't argue with it, and that's like a humbling
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
And
It's like, yeah, you know, if it comes down to it, you know who wins.
and yeah, exactly. And maybe I should feel how it feels to not being able to argue about it. You're like, yep, I'm being choked out right now. I can't do much about it. I wouldn't mind actually trying that out one day, but in my life so far, I have been very little rumbling.
Hey, sometimes it's good to just chill and make video games though too.
Yeah.
Making video games is humbling enough.
You're like, oh, I'm gonna do the world's biggest, coolest RPG. Like, no, you're not. All right.
All right. Well, yeah, with that, thanks everyone for hanging out with us all today. Do just real quickly want to remind you that you can support us over on Patreon and through YouTube memberships if you do want to. We do have some fun extra bonus videos and stuff there. Again, the support is totally optional, but we greatly appreciate it. And real quickly, do just want to call out the supporters at the CPU register tier, which is the highest tier that we have. So thank you very much to eCool and Hakan for your support over there. It is very much appreciated. So yeah, with that, we are at the end of the show here today. Looks like Mr. Awesome has a quick question.
See if we can come on quick.
Have the hosts used components on the system since they have the backing entities where you have the entity manager add component to a system handle?
Yeah, I use I saw that comment earlier, associating a component or several components with a system handle. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not really sure where that comes from. That wasn't from the beginning of ECS. That's I'm pretty sure of.
I think it kind of came with the 1.0
Yeah, that
about
sounds about
release.
right. I think it came somewhere where they had like the I system became, because then you
Right.
needed
because like
more
you can't just like
handles.
add and also like with system based you can have like managed fields on a system, and it's not technically like data oriented to have like fields on a system like that. So I think that's kind of another driving factor, and one of the reasons that they added in this feature is so every system has an entity. So if you want to like associate some data that's only really going to be used in that system, then you can just add it to that system backed entity.
Yeah, it's like a sort of streamlined version of a specialized singleton almost.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think that was a good idea. I've used it for several times when it's like, who should own this? I don't know. I guess the system handle makes sense, and then that's an easy easy answer to a question that is like a little bit diffuse.
Yeah. So once again, thanks to everybody for hanging out today. Some good questions here in chat, and I hope you enjoyed our little overview about Tobias's exciting stuff that he's doing with the baking system. So that, Tobias, any parting words of wisdom for the people?
Go into the weekend and bake some cakes.
Go to the weekend, bake some cakes. Try not to get in any card jitsu fights.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Sounds good. We'll take care, everybody, and we'll see you in the next episode. Again, the plan is to have Danny back on here talking about some Odin and Raylib stuff. So it should be very exciting. So see y'all then.
Bye.
Almost clicked on leave studio, which